The lights outside the Bella Vita Italian bistro glowed like strings of tiny stars glimmering on the validee's black vests and luxury hoods lined up curbside. Mandy Ree stepped out of her old faded Toyota Corolla, the contrast sharp and intentional. She knew exactly where she was walking into a dinner designed to humiliate her, a setting where she was always the outsider, a seat that never quite belonged to her at the table. Her dress was modest, clean, and unbranded, the kind of thing that didn't whisper wealth or scream success. It whispered nothing, just like how her family preferred her. She walked in, and the hostess didn't recognize her name at first. "Reservation for Ree," Mandy said. "Party of 6, they're already here." The hostess nodded politely, her eyes flickering briefly over Mandy's simple attire before leading her in. The clinking of silverware and wine glasses filled the air. Jazz hummed low through hidden speakers. And there at the far end of the room near the window with a view of the city skyline sat her family. Picture-perfect curated chaos. Lisa stood up with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Oh, look who's on time. Miracles do happen." Mandy offered a polite nod, sliding into the empty seat. Her mother, Sarah Beth, barely acknowledged her beyond a tight smile, Orville. Her father kept reading the menu like it was more interesting than her presence. The conversation flowed quickly around her, but never toward her. Lisa talked about her latest ad campaign and the influencer dinner in L.A. Marcus, her younger brother, boasted about his new mortgage and weekend golf plans. Mandy sipped water and folded the linen napkin across her lap. No one asked about her work. No one ever did. Then came the comments. "So Mandy," Lisa said, a grin curling her lips. "We ordered steak tonight. Might want to eat a little something before the food comes. Wouldn't want you to faint. You know, cleaning floors all day probably burns calories." Sarah Beth let out a soft chuckle, eyes still on her wine. "Don't tease your sister." "I'm not teasing," Lisa replied. "I'm just saying labor work is demanding." Orville finally looked up, squinting at Mandy. "Still doing that thing, house stuff?" "Yeah," Mandy said simply. "Well, honest work, I guess," he muttered, cutting into his steak. "But maybe it's time to think of something more stable, a real job." Mandy said nothing. There was no point. She'd heard it all before. "You know," Lisa added, swirling her wine, "tomorrow Forbes is running a segment on some billionaire housekeeper. Can you imagine, from scrubbing toilets to Silicon Valley's CEO? Crazy." Mandy raised an eyebrow. "Oh, what's her name?" Lisa pulled out her phone. "Let me check." She scrolled, then laughed. "Mandy Ree. Same name as you. What are the odds, huh?" The table fell silent. Orville barked a laugh. "Now that's funny. No way. It's this Mandy must be a glitch." Marcus snorted. "Yeah, sure, like you're the next Zuckerberg." Sarah Beth looked up finally. Her face was unreadable. Mandy leaned back in her chair and smiled faintly. "Yeah, must be someone else." The rest of the dinner passed in awkward waves. Lisa talking louder, Orville avoiding eye contact, Sarah Beth asking Marcus about a new car. The air was thinner, somehow more fragile. When the dessert came, a tiramisu with a single candle for Orville's birthday. They all posed for a photo. Lisa insisted Mandy stood just barely at the edge of the frame. When the check arrived, Mandy stood. "Thanks for dinner," she said. "Happy birthday, Dad." Orville nodded. "Yeah, try not to be a stranger," Lisa added with a chuckle. "Bring some gloves next time. You could do a quick cleanup while you're here." Mandy didn't flinch. She smiled, the kind that meant everything and nothing. "Sure. See you soon." She walked out of the restaurant without looking back. They didn't know that less than 12 hours from now, her face would fill their TV screens, that the name they mocked would headline national news, that the woman they dismissed would become the woman they had to answer to. Mandy Ree, founder and CEO of Clarity Living. From housekeeper to empire. In the stillness of her penthouse apartment, Mandy sat cross-legged on a velvet couch, sipping a mug of tea as sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her phone buzzed softly beside her, an email notification. with the subject line, Forbes Sunday feature, final confirmation. She read it once, then again, her name, her company, her story all set to air across the nation in less than 2 hours. She exhaled slowly and let her mind drift. 10 years earlier, Mandy had been sleeping on a second-hand futon in a cramped studio apartment that smelled of burnt toast and forgotten dreams. She had just dropped out of college. Not because she failed, but because someone else needed her more. Her grandmother, the only person in the world who had truly believed in her, had fallen ill. With no one else stepping up, Mandy became nurse, cook, cleaner, companion. Her dreams were packed away in storage with her textbooks. When her grandmother passed, Mandy was left with no degree, no job, no support. Her family had moved on, too busy with careers and status to look back. The only job she could find was cleaning houses. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't secure, but it was enough to pay rent and eat. One rainy Wednesday, Mandy arrived at the towering white estate of Evelyn Kane, a woman who carried herself like she had seen empires rise and fall. Mandy expected another silent client with too many antiques. But Evelyn surprised her. She watched as Mandy organized an entire office in one afternoon, sorting 10 years of paper chaos with military precision. "You're sharp," Evelyn said, handing Mandy a leather-bound book as she prepared to leave. "Why waste your mind scrubbing grout?" Mandy hesitated. "Dreams require money. I don't have the luxury to build them." Evelyn laughed. "Start small but start smart. Read this." The book was The Lean Startup. Mandy read it that night under a flickering bulb wrapped in a blanket of uncertainty. And then she read 5 more books, then podcasts, then TED Talks. She stopped sleeping in and started waking up an hour earlier to learn. She began to understand the hidden patterns of how wealthy people lived. Not just what they owned, but how they thought. It wasn't about mops and mirrors anymore. It was about systems, about trust, about access. Over the next 12 months, Mandy worked 14-hour shifts, cleaning homes while secretly planning a business model. She skipped parties. She stopped dating. Every dollar not spent on rent went into her savings. She moved into a shared apartment, sleeping on a mattress on the floor. She built a website, designed training modules, interviewed people who would form the backbone of her vision. At the end of that first year, Clarity Living was born, a luxury home management company offering elite cleaning concierge and lifestyle services for high-net-worth clients staffed with highly vetted professionals trained in discretion, luxury etiquette, and efficiency. Her first client came from Evelyn, a retired tech executive who referred her to 3 others. Within 6 weeks, Mandy had to hire her first employee. Within a year, she had a team. She grew slow and quiet. No ads, no family announcements, just results. Back at family dinners, she still let Lisa talk about her advertising job. Still let her mother slip her gas cards, just in case. Still let her father roll his eyes when she mentioned work. They never asked what she was building, and she never offered. She wanted them to believe the version of her they had created. Small, harmless, pitiful. Because while they pitied her, they underestimated her, and that was her greatest advantage. Now Mandy looked back at the email. Her face would be on every screen across America. She would no longer be invisible. The narrative would no longer be theirs to write. She checked the time. 8:58 a.m. She walked over to the television, turned it on, and sat with quiet poise. As the countdown began, her voice echoed softly in the room. "Today they will see me whether they're ready or not." The screen faded to black. The segment began. The morning was still, and golden sunlight filtered through the towering windows of Mandy Ree's penthouse suite, casting soft lines across the marble floor. The silence was only broken by the ticking of a designer wall clock. 59 a.m. Mandy sat still, legs crossed, her silk robe brushing the edge of the coffee table. One hand clutched a cup of black coffee, still steaming. The other gripped the remote, though she hadn't changed the channel once. Her eyes were locked on the television screen in front of her. "It's showtime," she whispered under her breath. The Forbes Sunday Spotlight logo appeared on the screen. Meanwhile, across the city, in a much smaller home with vinyl floors and worn-out upholstery, her family was just finishing breakfast. Her father, Charles, sat at the head of the table, flipping through TV channels while chewing toast. Her mother, Ellen, stacked plates, absently humming. Lisa and Marcus, Mandy's siblings, lounged on the sofa, scrolling through their phones. Charles stopped flipping when the Forbes theme song came on. "Hey, this might be that billionaire housekeeper story Lisa was talking about yesterday," he muttered. Lisa glanced up. "Oh yeah, what a joke, right? Like anyone can mop their way into a billion-dollar empire." The host's voice broke in. "Today we bring you an exclusive feature on a woman who built a billion-dollar empire from the ground up. A story of silence, strength, and success. Meet Mandy Ree." Silence. Dishes clattered to the floor. The screen cut to a sweeping aerial shot of Manhattan, zooming into the glass-fronted headquarters of Clarity Living. Then it cut to Mandy, dressed in a white power suit, walking through a high-rise lobby with a calm, commanding presence. Lisa blinked. "Wait, Mandy or Mandy?" Marcus leaned forward. "No way, that can't be her." But it was. Her name appeared in bold letters. Mandy Ree, CEO and founder, Clarity Living. The host continued detailing her journey from housekeeper to tech-driven home management mogul. The camera cut to archived footage of her first flyers, her first modest office. Even a grainy photo of her cleaning a client's home. Charles's face went blank. Ellen's eyes welled up. Lisa covered her mouth. Marcus whispered, She never said a word." Back at the penthouse, Mandy watched her own face on screen as testimonials from elite clients played. CEOs, celebrities, and even politicians praised her discretion, innovation, and professionalism. Her phone began to vibrate. One message, then another, then dozen. "Charles, Mandy, we need to talk." "Ellen, I'm sorry." "Is this all true, Lisa? Why didn't you tell us?" Marcus, "Holy crap. You're on TV. I'm in shock." Mandy didn't respond. She stood, set the coffee down, and walked to her closet. She took her time picking out the right outfit. Something sharp but not boastful, understated elegance. Slate gray blazer, ivory blouse, diamond studs, flats, not heel. She descended to the private garage, passing by the cars no one ever knew she owned. Her hand reached for the remote of the Rolls-Royce Ghost. The engine purred as she slid in. She drove through quiet suburban streets, the same ones she used to walk with worn sneakers and second-hand hopes. Her mind flicked through memories. The birthdays she'd been mocked at. The dinners filled with condescension. The years of silence. She pulled up to the curb of her childhood home. The lawn was the same. The porch light still broken. She parked, stepped out, and walked up the steps. Her heart pounded, but her face remained unreadable. She rang the bell. The door opened seconds later. Her mother stood there, still in pajamas, eyes red and puffy. "Mandy, is it really you?" Mandy didn't speak. She lifted her phone, showing her the headline, "Meet Mandy Ree, the hidden billionaire." Ellen's hand trembled. Tears spilled. Behind her, Charles appeared, his jaw slack. Lisa peeked around the corner, ghostly pale. Marcus hovered in the hallway, not knowing what to say. They looked like strangers in their own home. Mandy stepped inside. The air was thick, heavy, like it remembered everything they'd said to her and held it in the walls. She stood in the center of the living room, looked around, and then spoke. "Now that you know who I am, let's see if you remember who you were to me." Fade to black. The soft chime of the elevator echoed against the marble interior as it ascended slowly, carrying Mandy and her family higher and higher above the city. The air inside was thick, not from the altitude, but from tension. Each of them stood in their own corner, unsure where to look, what to say. It was the first time they had all been in the same space since the broadcast. Lisa, always the loudest, clutched her designer purse like a child holding a safety blanket. Marcus kept adjusting his cufflinks, even though they were perfectly straight. Their parents stood stiffly at the back, their eyes avoiding Mandy's reflection in the mirrored walls. Ding! The elevator doors opened to a scene that felt like something out of a film. A grand dining room bathed in golden light opened before them. Glass walls offered a panoramic view of the skyline. A string quartet played soft melodies in the corner, blending perfectly with the clink of crystal and silver. Each seat was set with precision, and in front of every setting, a crisp envelope lay atop porcelain plates, each one embossed with a name in elegant gold script. Mandy stood at the head of the table, dressed in tailored black. Not flamboyant, not showy, just undeniable. "Please take your seats," she said. They sat in silence. Once everyone was settled, she gestured toward the envelopes. "Go ahead." Lisa opened hers first. Her eyes scanned the contents, then froze. A clean clinical graph compared her yearly income with Mandy's daily passive revenue streams. The bar chart told the story more cruelly than words ever could. Her face turned red, then pale. Marcus opened his envelope. Next, inside was a printed email from 4 years ago. Mandy had written to his investment firm under a pseudonym, offering a pitch for Clarity Living. His team had responded politely but firmly, declining to invest, stating that residential services were not scalable nor innovative enough for their portfolio. Beneath it, a footnote. Initial opportunity, $100,000. Current value, $17.4 million. He looked up at her, blinking. You sent that to us." "Yes," Mandy replied evenly. Their mother and father hesitated, but finally opened their own. Theirs was a packet: messages, voicemails, emails, each one documenting a moment Mandy had reached out over the years. For help, for encouragement, for even the smallest acknowledgement. They were all met with silence, indifference, in some cases mockery. Their father's jaw tightened. Their mother's lips quivered, but neither said a word. A quiet fell over the room, broken only by the gentle hum of the violin. Mandy moved to the screen behind her. The lights dimmed, and a short video began to play. It showed the early days, Mandy scrubbing kitchen tiles, falling asleep over books, folding flyers by hand, holding back tears in a bathroom stall. Then came her first office, tiny, but hers. The first team huddle, the first Forbes email. Her voice played over the montage. "I didn't build this to prove anyone wrong. I built it to prove myself right." When the lights came back on, Mandy turned to face them. "I don't need apologies," she said. "I need you to stop pretending that I was ever less than." Silence. Then her mother stood. Her eyes were wet, her voice trembling. "Con không chỉ chứng minh điều gì đó cho chúng ta, mà còn cho cả thế giới." Mandy nodded slowly, "And I'm not done." She turned, looking out the window. The city glowed beneath her, a sea of opportunity, of lives in motion. She knew deep down that this dinner wasn't just closure. It was ignition. A new beginning. Not for them, for her. The morning unfolded like a soft breath, gentle and unrushed. Mandy stood in her penthouse kitchen, barefoot on the polished oak floor. The air tinged with the calming scent of jasmine tea. Light seeped in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting golden stripes across the marble countertops and plush furniture. It was one of those mornings that didn't feel borrowed or hurried. It felt earned. She took a sip of tea, let the warmth bloom across her chest, then glanced at her phone lying face down next to the tea kettle. It had been silent all morning, a rare peace she had come to cherish. Then it buzzed. She turned the screen over, just one message. From Mom. "Please, one word." No context, no "I'm sorry," no preamble. But Mandy didn't need more to understand its weight. It wasn't just a plea. It was the first crack in a wall that had been fortified for years. She sat down on the velvet bench by the window. The message sat there, pulsing faintly, as though waiting for her to validate it. A part of her, maybe the part that had once cried silently after family dinners, wanted to ignore it. But the woman she was now didn't move from pain anymore. She moved from power. She didn't respond. Instead, she opened her laptop, logged into her personal blog, and began typing just one line. To the quiet ones, you were never invisible. They just feared what would happen if you spoke. She hit public. No hashtags, no explanations, no venom, just the truth. In a matter of minutes, the post started gaining traction, not because it was loud or dramatic, but because it resonated. People recognized themselves in it. People felt seen. The day passed slowly. Like time was catching its breath, she declined 3 media interview requests, ignored 3 speaking engagement invites, and let her assistant know she'd be off the radar for the weekend. That night, Mandy lit candles, prepared a simple roast chicken, poured a glass of red, and set the table for one. The setting was elegant, but intimate. Her favorite jazz record played softly in the background. In the center of the table sat a single folded napkin, origami-shaped like a swan. The same shape that had once been placed in front of her during the dinner where her family humiliated her. Back then it had mocked her, now it crowned her solitude. She took a photo of it, not for social media, just for her. A reminder symbols can be rewritten. As she took her seat, her phone buzzed again, from Marcus. Next Sunday, family dinner at our place. No pressure, just come as you are. We'd like to listen this time. Mandy set the phone down gently. She didn't smile right away. She breathed deeply. There it was, the invitation that used to come with caveats and judgments. Now it came with something rarer. Humility. For years she had been pushed into silence. For years she had eaten cold dinners at odd hours, while they laughed over steak and wine, never asking how she was. They didn't know about the nights she spent sleeping on the floor or the meetings she led with VC firms in borrowed blazers. They had assumed her silence was defeat. But in truth, her silence had been the sound of something growing deep, determined, and unshakable. She took a bite of dinner, slow and purposeful. She savored the taste. The silence, the stillness, this was her victory lap, not marked by applause or headlines, but by clarity, peace, and power. She didn't need their apology. She didn't need their approval. What she had now was bigger. And it wasn't just money or success. It was self-possession, sovereignty. She had rebuilt the image they shattered and turned it into something indestructible. She looked out at the skyline and whispered, "Not every storm comes to destroy. Some come to clear the path, and this time I was the storm. Sometimes all you need is belief, not from others, but from yourself." Mandy's story isn't just a rise from cleaning floors to leading a billion-dollar company. It's a bold reminder that success doesn't have to be loud to be real. You can build in silence and still shake the world. The lesson here is clear. Never let someone else's opinion define your worth. You don't need permission to succeed. You only need courage to begin. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more meaningful content. This isn't just a success story, it's a wake-up call. The light in you has always been there. Let it shine.